Want to learn how to grow beautiful petunias in a hot and tropical humid climate? Alrighty then, let's go. Welcome everybody. If you are new here, I am the Tropical Pollinator and we are based in the Asian continent of Malaysia, Johor. I post multiple times a week on self-sustaining ecosystems for your small-scale garden, as well as some pollinator favorites because I love the bees and butterflies, and who doesn't? So on today's episode, we'll be talking about these gorgeous things called petunias. Now these are based in my hot and tropical climate, which is not exactly the most favorable for petunias since they like sort of drier and colder climates, you would say, but it's definitely something that is a personal favorite of mine, and I can't keep these up. Like, look at that, this is so beautiful. So a little bit of history on these darling annuals. They are actually part of the Solanaceae family, which is a nightshade family, and they are native to South America. Now, growing petunias in our climate is definitely a challenge. I would not consider this as a beginner plant. This is definitely a intermediate to advanced keeping plant, and the only reason I say that is because the varieties that we get here are not labeled. So these are definitely more of your grandmother petunia seedling type of petunias, and they need much more work than maybe a hybridized one, simply because they set seed all the time and you have to deadhead these. If not, what happens is that you get these seed pods. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, see that brown little heart thing? That's a seed head. And since it's an annual, what happens is the plant actually flowers like that. It flowers. It drops its flower, either gets pollinated or drops its flower, and then it sets seed, and then it dies, because that's what an annual does. It just goes through the cycle and it waits for the offspring of the next generation to take its place. And the sad thing about that is that because we live in such a hot and humid climate, the seeds just fungus out and we never really see them sprout back up. So it's a true annual in that sense, but it's also a little bit tricky if you do not deadhead them because of the type that they are. Since these are the seedling variety, it's not like a hybridized one that you get in other places, because hybridized ones, they kind of don't set seed, they flower and then they drop their blooms and then they flower again, and it's gorgeous. All you got to do is you have to feed the soil and make sure that you prune them to keep them looking good. But yeah, we don't have that here. So guide to growing these successfully, the most important thing you got to remember is the soil type. Now I'm experimenting a little bit with these ones. I'm growing them in a larger trellis planter box instead of your traditional hanging basket. And the reason I do that is because we're having a lot of heat waves, and I'm trying to see if I can extend the life by creating a little bit more volume mass in the planter box so that I don't have to water them so frequently. Traditionally in our climate, despite whatever you read online, it is usually a daily watering, okay? But the soil type is something that you gotta take note of. So what I did is I mixed a little bit of potting mix with a little bit of garden soil, just a little bit, to kind of give it a little bit more of a dense, maybe a flower bed sort of consistency, to see if it works. But what you do want to do if you want to have better success, in my opinion, in our tropical climate, is actually to go with coconut coir, a full coconut coir, or a very light, fluffy potting mix, something that has zero clay and more organic matter. That would be ideal for these petunias, only because they don't like sitting in water. And there are times where we have heavy rains almost every other day, and during monsoon it's terrible. So these guys, first of all, you need to place them in a semi-shaded area. I do not recommend full sun, simply because it's not so much about the plant not being able to handle the full sun. I think the petunias, sorry for the noise, I think the petunias can handle the full sun just fine. It's the soil. If the soil dries out way too fast, because our climate, you know, things just they just fizzle out. So if the soil dries out way too fast, what's going to happen is that the roots are going to get starved of water, and they're going to start sending more and more flowers out. So you will initially get like an amazing flush of blooms. You're like, oh, my petunia is doing so well. But because this is a seed variety, it's just going to set out blooms after blooms, and they're already sending a message to the plant that, oh, we are in dire stress, and they're going to set seed heads, and the plant is going to die back. And that is exactly what happens all the time. So here, most of our petunias have to be replaced every few months because they don't last. But if you do want to keep them longer, you can. You just have to make sure that you deadhead them. And when I say deadhead them, I mean cut. Like this is a spent bloom. You got to cut all the way down here, okay? You could definitely pinch it if you want to. I just use a scissors and I just cut it because it's easier that way. So you could pinch it like that, pinch it off with your nail, and it comes off. Or you could just take a pair of scissors, which is what I do, and I just go snip, 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 and that's it. So that's what you have to do. Every single day you got to come out here and you got to check these, because if you don't, they're just going to go to seed and they're going to die on you. And that's their natural cycle. Since they are true annual, that's what they do. So tips for growing petunias. Now, since I say it's an intermediate to an advanced growing plant, more like it's somebody who's a little bit more advanced in growing other types of plants. Beginners, this is not a beginner friendly plant at all from where we are. A lot of other places will say it's very easy and all that kind of thing. It's not easy where we are. We got to really keep an eye on these guys. But the benefit is that it's so beautiful. I mean, there's nothing like a petunia in a trellis. We don't have that kind of wonderful Western looking flowers here. We have a lot of traditional tropical ones, and this just really brings like a real element of royalty to the garden. I feel a lot of the pollinators love it. We've got bees and butterflies and things, and I've got like a bee buzzing around me trying to get to a flower. But definitely some care tips to take note. First of all, soil. Make sure the soil is light and fluffy, okay? But in doing so, you have to understand that because of the consistency of the light and fluffy soil, you have to water them daily. Fertilizing can be done weekly with a water soluble. You can definitely use granular as well. Granular will be once in 3 months. And excuse the noise. And in terms of fertilizing, if you notice that your plant is kind of stressing out, don't fertilize it for that amount of time. Just check the water, check the soil, and make sure that it's not sitting in water, because if it sits in water and your drainage holes are blocked and things like that, it will definitely rot out quick. Okay, and then the third thing you got to make sure is that if you want to keep it flowering, you got to keep it in a place where there's like indirect light, but not in full sun. If you want to keep it in full sun, you totally could, but you might want to mulch the base of the flower pot, the soil, mulch it down really thick to keep the moisture in. But you got to watch it also, because if it rains, then you're in trouble. So keep it in a semi-shaded area, because when these petunias, since these are the grandma variety or the seed variety, when they get hit on by rain, they just melt. Like, they get all squishy and stuff, and the vines just, the trellis, the flowers just look horrible. So if you can keep them in a semi-shaded where they get a little bit of water, but not like downpour of rain, that would be the most ideal. Okay, so it's not that hard in terms of taking care of it, but it's definitely more attention to detail compared to like most of the pollinator ones that I show you, because those are sort of set and forget kind of flowers. But there's nothing like a petunia, honestly. So I'll update you guys on the soil requirements that I'm looking at, because like I mentioned, the one that I have, I've kind of mixed it in a little bit more of like a garden soil mix with the coconut coir instead of straight up coconut coir, because I want them to kind of last a little bit longer, but we'll see about that. So I'll update you in the next video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you could, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll share with you the update soon. Thanks guys, see you next time.